Hello everyone, hope all are doing good. So today I'm here to talk about one of the topics that I get asked the most, that is how to choose a Montessori school for my child. And I totally understand why it is so difficult to know which school to choose from, especially when it comes to Montessori, because Montessori isn't copyrighted, so basically anyone can start the school and call themselves as Montessori. And it does happen in many places that they call Montessori, and there's nothing about the school that is Montessori. So today I'm here to share the things that I consider is important to look for in a Montessori school. So this is totally my perspective and based on my understanding about the Montessori school, but I hope it will give you a good idea on what are the things to look for. So the first thing I would suggest is to take the tour of the school. I highly recommend taking the tour before enrolling the child, because taking a tour really helps to get an understanding of how the school functions and what principle the school holds. And if the school completely denies the request for giving a tour, then that would be a big red flag for me, because Montessori schools are pretty transparent and open, and I don't really see a reason why they would deny the tour completely. If they do not want you to enter into the classroom when the children are around because of the COVID situation, it completely makes sense and I really respect that. But so the Montessori classrooms have the glass doors, or at least some place where you can look into the classroom. At least you can stand outside and take a look at what's going on in the classroom. That would be great. So the next thing I would look for is the environment, because environment plays a very major role in the Montessori methodology. So having an environment where everything is child size and child can easily access to is very important, which includes the toilets and the wash basin and the water source, etc., must be very accessible to the child. Also, if there is any materials kept way too high from the child's reach, then that is something we can ask and find out why they have done it that way. And also see how the things are arranged. The materials must be beautifully arranged in a tray or basket in a way that the child can carry it themselves. And in Montessori, typically there should be a couple of shelves dedicated for the practical life, some for the sensorial, and then language and math. So these four are the major areas. And if things are mixed up and there is no dedicated space for these categories, then it would definitely concern me. And talking about the materials, the next thing to see is if things are complete, because in Montessori we make sure that it is complete and it does not miss any pieces, and if it is missing any piece, we take off the whole material from the shelf, because it is important that the material is presented completely to the child. But as I have observed when I was taking a tour in the Montessori schools for my child, I have observed that some schools do not keep all the materials out and some parts are missing, especially the pink tower. Those tiny cubes on the, I don't know if you know the pink tower, there's something you see behind me. So those tiny cubes on the top are usually not placed in the classroom. Then I would definitely ask them the reason why they don't keep it. If they say something like, oh, it's a choking hazard and things like that, then it's definitely a red flag for me, because I understand the possibility of the child's putting it in their mouth. As a guide, it's my job to make sure they are safe, but they understand the way to use the materials. But I would never steal the opportunity for the child to learn how to handle those tiny pieces and to explore the material completely by removing those cubes, because they do play a major role. It's a unit, and I think it is very important that the child works on it. So if they give reasons like, okay, they always get lost and it's hard to find them when the child needs it, so we keep it separately and we give it to child when they want to work on it, then it's still something acceptable. I would still prefer to keep it outside, but if it is too much of work, then I think it's okay for the guide to keep it inside, but if you see that the child, they are not going to give this to the child, then that's definitely something I would be worried about. So the next thing I would make sure is that teachers are well trained and they have the diploma certification done. It's great if the school has been accredited by AMI or AMS, because then for sure they have some standards set. But I wouldn't consider only those schools as good schools, because there are many other good schools out there who have not been accredited by AMI or AMS, because those accreditation does take a lot of work from the school, and not all the schools can afford doing that, but they are still great schools. But I would definitely make sure that the teachers and even the assistants in that matter has been trained and has some certification done, because it is very, very important that the guide and the assistant in the classroom understands the Montessori philosophy and has a good understanding about each material and how it is presented, etc. So now that I'm undergoing the diploma training, I can definitely see how much of a work it is. It's a lot of work and it's lots of practice to be a guide that a child needs, and I would definitely not consider a school which has guides or assistant who haven't done any training. And the next thing I would check for is the age group in the classroom. So Montessori has different age group children in the same classroom. So either it is 0 to 3 or 3 to 6 or 6 to 9 and so on. So if you see that the classroom has just children of same age group, then it would be a big red flag for me, because so there is some significance for why we do a mixed age classrooms, because there's a lot of learning happening when the young children come in and they see the older children working on the material. It creates a lot of impact on them. So, and vice versa, the older ones do learn how to show work to the younger ones, and there's a mutual learning happening there, which is very, very important from my understanding. So I would never consider a Montessori classroom with the same age group children for my child. So the next thing I would check on is the work cycle, or we call it the work period, and typically it should be at least 3 hours in a Montessori classroom, which would include even using the toilet or the snack time, etc. But it's suggested that there should be an uninterrupted workflow of at least 3 hours. So during these 3 hours, the guide does not interrupt them, or it should be more like the child is able to do things on their own for these 3 hours. Because that's very important to develop their concentration, and in that 3 hours there is a phase where they go into that deep concentration level, and it is very, very important for the child. So I would definitely check with them and see how the day flows, and make sure that they are getting at least 2 to 3 hours of work period. So the next few other things that I would consider asking the school is if they let the child prepare the snacks for themselves. I know a few of the schools did stop doing that after COVID, but I think now things are getting back to normal. So if they did say that they have stopped doing that, then I would definitely ask them if they're planning to start again, and follow up on that if you decide to join the school. And next I would consider asking if the child is allowed to move freely in the classroom and select their work, because some schools, especially after this COVID situation, have put some restrictions on how the child can work in the classroom. And with the materials, I would also check if they have delicate materials in the classroom, like the glass bowls, glass cups, glass pitchers or plates, etc., because it's very important that the child is given an opportunity to work on the delicate materials. If things are all plastic, then it's definitely a red flag for me. And some other details that you can look for is some plants in the classroom, because taking care of the plant is one of practical life activity that happens in the classroom. And I would definitely make sure that there is some plants in that environment, and plants does add some great feeling and vibe to the environment. Also maybe some flowers for the child to arrange the flowers, and some outdoor space. This is also something I consider looking at, the decent size outdoor space where the child can move and burn those energy they have in them, because movement is really important for the child to have that concentration later on. And if they're doing things like gardening, composting, etc., then it will be definitely a cherry on top. So finally, to conclude, that it's your family decision, so you and your child is the one who has to decide if that school would work for you or not. So it's not necessary that all schools would work for all families. Everyone have different things and different expectations from the schools. So make sure that you like the school, make sure your child likes the school, make sure to talk to the teacher. That's again one more point that I would definitely consider doing, is that find out who would be the guide for the child's classroom and talk to the guide, because that will really give you a good understanding of whether you want that school or not. Because it's important that you get that vibe when you talk to the guide, and you get that confidence that that guide is the right person for your child. You can also make out a lot by the way they interact with you or your child, and that definitely gives you a good understanding of if that school is right for you or not. So I hope this video gave you some idea on things to look for when you're choosing the school for your little one. And please do let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions, and I'll try to answer them. Thank you. Bye.